Hello, and welcome to this mortal coil. I would like to start off this channel by defining trauma. What is trauma? By definition, trauma is a deeply disturbing and distressing experience, a disordered psychic or behavioral state resulting from severe mental or emotional stress of physical injury. Let's explore these definitions. Trauma is the Greek word for wound. A wound is any injury sustained by an external force. Now notice the word external and psychic in those definitions. Those of us who have survived from experienced trauma and or abuse eventually begin to understand through healing and self-reflection that they in fact had very little or no control, especially those who survived childhood trauma, over the external force that caused this wound. Now, a wound can be three things: an injury to us physically, mentally, or, now this is the very important part, spiritually. There's a saying out there that time heals all wounds, but what if it doesn't? What if it takes much more than just time? What if it takes a deeper understanding of what trauma and healing really is? Now, the first step towards healing is developing an understanding of what ails us, or what we suffer with or from. All of our doctors and therapists understand that an injury or wound can be both mental and physical. But what about spiritual? I think that most of us can agree that there is a spiritual or electrical component inherent in all of us. Now, without going into a deep esoteric discussion on the trinity aspect of our nature, something we can explore in later videos, let's just assume for now that the universal laws are correct. If you don't know what those are, I highly encourage you to research them, as they are the very first step in understanding our true nature as beings. The basics are, as above, so below, the micro and macro, internal and external, positive and negative, and as these dualities then give birth to singularities. For example, protons and electrons give birth to neutrons. By adding the spiritual component to our definition of trauma, we can now develop a more complete understanding of trauma and the effects of negative experience in our everyday lives. There are a trinity of healers that practice today. There are doctors who work the physical, psychologists who work the mental, and shamans who work the spiritual. While each are vitally important, very few coexist with each other to find the framework behind the effects of trauma. As we understand the basic nature of trauma, it is an event or an act by an external force that affects us in a negative way. The effect of these events is unfortunately just now beginning to be understood. Leaders in both the physical and mental healing disciplines are finally finding a direct correlation between adverse conditions, repeat exposure to trauma, and the severe health complications that arise later in life. Something that spiritual healers like Buddhists and Taoists have known for centuries. The other unfortunate aspect of this is that most psychiatrists and health practitioners reject the idea of spiritual healing. The good thing is that people are now striking out on their own and taking responsibility of their own spiritual work. Though not all work in these fields are more important than the other, each practice is developing brilliant methods of diagnosing, treating, and in some cases severely reducing the negative side effects of trauma. It is a combination of these practices that I feel could ultimately lead us toward an eventual cure. So let me stop right there and explain what I mean by a cure for some of those of you probably cursing under your breath right now. Like any ailment, there is a cause and effect. In some cases, we cannot control the cause, but can control the effects. Instead of simply treating symptoms, like putting a band-aid on it or taking a pill, so to speak, what if we could, through careful and considerate manipulation of how our brain, body, and spirit react to the trauma, we could effectively eliminate the side effects of past trauma and abuse. Now, before you start throwing virtual rotten tomatoes at me, I want you to do some research on a man by the name of Tony Robbins. I'm sure you've heard of him. He has coached presidents. Millionaires have been inspired by him, and despite, or perhaps an effect of, his adverse childhood trauma, he has become the spokesperson for positivity and overcoming adversity. So if he can do it, why can't we? As we continue to explore the possibility of reversing the negative effects of trauma, I would like all of you to keep in mind this little nugget of wisdom in the forefront of your mind. We must take responsibility for what we carry with us. This will be the underlying theme for everything that will be discussed on this channel. If it does not resonate with you now, noodle it, meditate on it, ask a loved one what that statement means to them. Print it out and carry it with you, for it is the key to absolute healing. I will continue to post videos of various techniques and topics from every discipline, from the foundation of why and how they work, what doesn't work, and some other fun topics. Please subscribe, like, and comment to further the cause. I would love to hear from you about your experiences and make this into a community. Together, through compassion and evidence, we can discover a cure for the real #1 killer in America. I am deeply grateful for your support.